Alright then. Now, before we dive deeper into how the this keyword behaves when we use call, apply, and bind, let's see what are they and why are they so useful. I'll show you what I mean. If we consider that any function in JavaScript is an object, it is good to know that these methods are part of any function object, as they are inherited from the function prototype that they all include. But we'll see this in a minute. And on the other hand, these methods will help us, let's say, to control the this keyword. So they allow us to define which will be the object that the this keyword must point to. So which will be the object executing that function, right? Because we're actually using behaviors from one object into another, but just in different ways. The thing is that call and apply are almost identical, while bind works a bit different. And it is important to differentiate that because while call and apply will invoke the function right away, bind will create a new function that we have to invoke ourselves instead. And that is in fact more an advantage than a disadvantage. But no worries, we'll see this later on as well. Now if we create a function, just console log hi there, this dot name, right? And we inspect this function inside the window object. We can see how inside the function prototype these methods are included. The same as if we inspect any other method, they are included as well, because at the end of the day this is the same prototype, right? But I'm not gonna dive deeper into prototypal inheritance. I'll just leave this topic for another lesson. Now I'll give a name to the window so it's easier to see. Right. Now if we call this function and we use call and apply, right? We use call here and then apply. You can see how we get the same output. And by the way, these three methods can include parameters. And in all cases, the first one will always be the value of the this keyword. So the value or object to which we want the this keyword point to. And here is where we start taking control of it. Now the call method is responsible for any invocation of a function. In other words, the call method makes an object callable, as it is just an internal method that is used anytime we use the parenthesis operator to invoke any function or method. And we're actually using it all the time behind the scenes. Now I'll create the same object that we've been using in the last lessons, but with some parameters inside the method. So I'll have a name, right, and a brand, and a method. I'll just add the parameters in a minute. Console log this dot brand, this dot name is flying at, we use height, which is feet, and speed, which is knots, right? Now I'll add the parameters, height and speed, right? Now before we use the call method on this object, let me create another object first. Have a name as well, and just a brand, right? Now, if we want to use a call method on these objects, what we're doing is the following. First, we write the reference to indicate what is the behavior that we want to activate. So, plain.fly. And then we use a call method. And then the parentheses to invoke the whole thing. And finally, we insert any values according to the parameters that this function expects, using the comma separator. And the first one must be the value of the this keyword. So in this case, the object plane, right? I'll give it 4,500 feet and 130 knots, right? and we get this output, right? And this will be the same, as obviously, as doing this, in this case, right? Now, we want to use this method, but inside the other object, we just need to change the value of the this keyword. In this case, car, right? And we got Jeep Wranglers flying. Yeah, I know it's a bit crazy, but you know, you get the idea. Now, the apply method works practically in the same way as the call method does, but as you probably know, instead of a list of parameters separated by commas, it only accepts an array after this argument. So all the arguments must be in the form of an array-like object. So something like this. Right? And we get this output, which is the same, right? Now bind is a bit different, because as we've seen, it creates a new function, but it does not call the function right away. So it is not meant to be used just once. Bind instead allows any object to have access to any method from another object as many times as we want, once we have established this connection. So this method will be binded permanently, as opposed to call and apply, where you can just use it once. So it's like writing the same method inside another object in a much more efficient way. Now, on the other hand, bind is also pretty useful if we're dealing with methods like setTimeout, where the value of the this keyword can change over time, because what we're doing, in fact, is forcing the this keyword to point to some object. So, if we have this method, right, I'll give it 2 seconds, right? Here you can see how is the window object, the one that is calling this method, right? Because setTimeout, as we've seen in the last lecture, does not expect a function call, but a function definition instead, right? So we're just referencing this method, it's not calling it, right? So if we want to avoid this, we can also do something like this. We just use bind, plain, right? And this time I'll give it 4 seconds. And we get the first one is undefined, and the second one is skyhawk, right? But what we will probably do will be storing these connections inside a variable and then call the functionality inside of it, right? So something like this. Plain.fly, then we bind it, and we say car, we'll give it, I don't know, 10,000 feet and 130 knots, right? And the only thing we have to do now is just invoke this functionality, right? But we can do that anytime we want. And it's this one here. Well, I hope this was helpful, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. And I'll see you in the next lecture. Thanks for watching.